Whilst Parliament was busy with public hearings on whether Section 25 of the South African Constitution should be amended or not, some activists are calling for the land question to go beyond 1913. Anthony Williams of Indigenous First Nation Advocacy South Africa, IFNASA, is one such activist.
When you talk about land dispossession after 1913, it doesn't make sense that this very same constitution that promotes the redress of the past injustice, if one just takes Section 25, subsection 1 for argument's sake, that very clearly talks about that there is absolutely no law, that should prohibit, anybody from redress of the past injustice. And then just later in the same section, it goes and then it bars some of the people who rightfully own this land, right? So it's disingenuous, it is a contradiction, it's a piece of legislation that is filled with contradictions. The entire constitution is filled with contradictions.
Artist activist Marcelo Motana shares the same sentiments, citing the brutal beheading of black kings during wars prior to the enactment of the 1913 Land Act.
I felt that it was important to represent their voices because I felt that this so-called consultative process was not, it feels like they're not bearing those stories in mind, how the actual dispossession happened prior to 1913, which for me were the most grievous. That's when they used to chop people's heads off, burn their lands.
So the question then is, how far back should we go? As far back as 1652 maybe?
1652 is way too late. It's too late. And I'll tell you why. When you talk about 1652, you are systematically, you are erasing the history before that. The very first resistance that was offered for the land to Europeans was between the Kwekwe, in particular the Kwekwe in a place called Mossel Bay, St. Helena Bay, at the Salt Lake River mouth. That's where the very first recorded resistance occurred on the 1st of March 1510.
Before Van Riebeeck came, there was a boat of Portuguese that came and they just shot at people on the coast. But you see, those are the first reported incidents according to colonial diaries. So one thing I love about colonists, they kept diaries of everything, how they tortured people, how many people they sent to Breakwater prison, to Robben Island. If you go into Robben Island, they'll even tell you we put so-and-so's head on a stake, we burnt so-and-so.
So the land question was always going to be animated, was always going to be the biggest test of democracy.
The Restitution of Land Rights Act 22 of 1994, amongst other things, seeks to provide the restitution of rights in land to persons or communities dispossessed of such rights after 19 June 1913.